Hello, everybody. My name is Justice. I'm the executive director of Out on Film, Atlanta's Oscar and BAFTA qualifying LGBTQ film festival, and I am pleased to be joined with a special Q&A of the filmmakers for Animation Explosion. This block is very near and dear to my heart as a animator in a past life myself, so I'm really excited to jump on in. To go ahead and get started, I'd like to just go around and just, each one of you tell me a little bit about yourselves, how you got into filmmaking, animation, etc. Who wants to go? AJ, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure, I'll go. So my name is AJ. I am the co-director of A Bird Hit My Window and Now I'm a Lesbian, which is a stop motion short. And I got into animating um, during college. My school had one stop motion animation class, and I just fell in love with it. It was just like the perfect combination of all of the fine art I've been doing and all the film I had been doing. And then that's where I met my co-director, Carmela. And then after that one class, we just made our thesis film and figured it out as much as we could and kind of learned along the way. And now I'm sold. I love stop motion.
Awesome. It took that one class to give you that itch for it.
Just one.
Marcelo, did you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. My name is Marcello. I'm the writer and director of the short film Mike and the Magazine. I'm Italian. I'm actually not an animator. I started as a film journalist many years ago. Then I work a lot in the film industry in many capacity, in film distribution mostly, and production for the past 6 years, mostly film production, and also for some international film festivals. I wrote quite a few years ago, this script, short script for this story, and then I thought eventually I would like to make it happen. I'm not in, I don't know much about animation. I thought about approaching some animation company, but then I said, why don't I decided to explore? I wanted to explore a little bit AI, and so that's how it took me a few months to try to put it together in AI, and eventually I would like this to be a concept for a short series, animation series done with an animation company for about the coming of age adventures of little Mike.
Oh, okay. So to actually make this episodic.
That's I run another couple of episodes, so we'll see. That's one of the ideas.
All right, awesome. May, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm May. I'm the director and animator of The Eating of an Orange. And I've been an animator for quite a while now. But this is my first sort of directorial short, which feels really good. So I've been animating for other people for ages, and this is the one that's like my brain, which feels great.
Something always exciting about when you've been doing it for everybody else and you finally get to tell your own story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it feels very special.
All right. And Baz, do you want to close us out on introductions?
Yeah, I'm Baz. I'm stop motion animation director at a studio called One Sixth Animation, and I've been making stop motion probably since. God, I'm gonna age myself now. 2008 when I first started making it at film school. Fell in love with it ever since, and here we are today.
I think that's incredible. I remember taking my stop motion animation class back in grad school, and it was fun to build the sets, the actual animating. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick to 3D, even though it's more technical.
Yeah, I
uh,
used to. Sorry, go on.
no, no, you please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like like Marcelo, I'm kind of coming from. I did originally come from a bit of a different background. I was a live action director for a few years, and then decided to make life a little bit harder for myself and got into motion. Sorry.
Aren't us all of us creatives the gluttons for punishment? It's like, let me try something new and more challenging.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's just talk a little bit about your projects. I mean, let's go around. I'd love to see like what inspired you to tell each one of your stories. We're gonna go in backwards, I guess, Baz, because you were talking. Let's just keep it going with you.
Yeah, sure. I was introduced by our film's based on the poem by Dean Atter, and I was introduced to the poem by our producer Ben Jackson. Ben was already looking to make a short film based on his own coming out process, I should say. And so we were already discussing ideas for that short film, and then we were introduced to Dean's poem, um, which kind of meant we naturally segued into yeah, telling a queer story as well as taking on a project that we felt really had a lot of potential in terms of both in terms of its value. You know, the themes are incredibly important, but also we felt like the poem really lent itself to tell a very kind of both an imaginative but also a story that's grounded in realism and kind of real experience. So our film is we're myself, Ben, and Dean are all co-writers on the film, and the story is very much kind of guided by Ben and Dean's experience. With also, you know, parts of my own kind of input, but it's been very much led by their experiences, along with, you know, a good dash of imagination in there as well.
Awesome. May, tell us what inspired you to tell your story.
Well, I made it as part of my master's at the RCA.
Oh, nice.
And I wanted to make something that was about convention and about the absurdity of conventions around gender and sexuality. And the more that I like dived into it, just the more that I noticed all of these like mad rules that we all follow all the time, and then the impact that they all have. So I wanted to make something that was just sort of like dismantling all of that. And it very much started with this idea of the orange and someone living in this world where the orange was like not allowed as this sort of like completely absurdist thing. And then it all sort of like grew out of that. And yeah, it's sort of like based on my own experience of suppression of sexuality and then reaching a point of being like, what the hell am I doing? Absolutely not. And then wanting to sort of, you know, hopefully inspire that in other people.
Once we're done, I want to come back around to that. I have a specific question for your film too in regards to that, because there was definitely a message of like conformity and going against the grain in that. But there's something I want to talk a little more about with that. Marcelo, what was the inspiration or the need to tell this story? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, it's not exactly autobiographic, but I think everybody had this experience in the teenage year of feeling very vulnerable and ashamed and awkward, and so I wanted to try to portray that time of adolescence with hopefully with a tender and gentle look towards this teenage boy, which is full of shame of. In a time of self-discovery or awkwardness, vulnerability, and that's what I was trying to portray with this film.
Incredible. Yeah, I think there was also some themes that like I for a lot of your films there was about a lot of self-discovery and coming of age, which some of it is there's like uniqueness to being queer, but then there's also some parts of it it's just like it just feels universal. I think everybody at some stage of their life has to figure out their sexuality and like who they are and who they're attracted to and figuring out those feelings that they never had before. So there were some things about your film that I saw I was like, okay, wow, this is this is a topic you probably wouldn't see in animation, but it's also something I feel like it's universal. It's not just it's completely rooted in just being queer. So I thought that was incredible. AJ, tell us a little bit about the inspiration for yours.
Yeah, so our film is about two strangers who hold an impromptu bird funeral. And it was inspired by like this fact about birds, which is generally when a male bird flies into a window during the daytime, it's because he sees his reflection as another bird, as like a bird who's a rival for his territory or his woman. So he flies into the window to destroy the other bird. And in this case, we kind of saw his rival as like lesbianism. So it's kind of like the death of the bird that acts as the catalyst to the film.
Now, I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. I do want to circle back. We talked about with May's film conformity and just societal expectations. And I think this is really important discussion here, especially on animation, because here in the US, there is almost like a societal expectation that animation is just for is family friendly. Certain themes, certain topics you steer clear of, especially sexuality. But all of you obviously wanted to tell some very serious stories in animation. Can you all just, each whoever wants to, tell me how did choosing the medium animation, did that play a part in your story, or was there something about you're like, I feel like doing this in animation would be even better? How did that affect the storytelling of your projects? Anybody?
I can
I,
go.
Yes, yes. So, all right, yes, May. You're the one that triggered this question.
Well, I said I could go, and then I haven't actually thought of an answer. I guess for me, it's like animation was always, it's like how my brain works rather than necessarily a specific choice in this topic. But I think I love animation for talking about serious things because of that thing of that it almost like lulls people into a false sense of security. So before doing this, I worked a lot for documentaries, and often they were about sort of like really heavy subject matter. And I think that there's something that it sort of like allows people to access stuff and think about stuff that they might not, that they might otherwise turn away from because it's like too much. It's sort of, it's almost like the level of abstraction then allows people to engage in a different way, which I think is one of the reasons why animation can be so amazing for these sorts of stories. Um, yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, hold on. I did Baz, were you about to go?
I was just going to say, I very much agree with that. I feel like animation has an aspect of it, as well as the expression that is very disarming. For our film, it kind of, as well as being what we do, we are animation filmmakers, but it felt like for us, we were able to tread a line that was somewhere between kind of real lived experiences, but also kind of heightened reality as well. So we kind of move in and out of different spaces that I'm not sure we would have been able to do quite as successfully with kind of any other medium, say live action. But then again, on another level, it was also for us a little bit more complicated because we have a sex scene, which making stop motion puppets sexy is not easy. And especially if you want to, if you want, I mean, the quote on set from me was constantly, look, we need to not do Team America. Okay, so you know, so our scene on our sex scene was particularly tricky because getting the right level of kind of nuance, the right level of coverage, so you're not kind of censoring was yeah, it was quite tricky to get that tonally, but I think we got there in the end. But yeah. Anyone else?
we had a similar experience in our film as well, where it was kind of like we wanted to take on the challenge of like making these two inanimate objects intimate with each other and like portraying that through stop motion, which there's kind of like an uncanniness or like an otherness that it has that feels sometimes. And then we also kind of wanted to explore the way like that otherness of stop motion parallels like the otherness you might feel when like you're accepting your queer identity.
Well, as for me, I thought about first about shooting it in live action, and but then I thought I started to explore the idea of make it in animation because I think it adds a bit to the tenderness and awkwardness of the characters, and it also was a quite unusual topic to portray in animation, I think, which was also to me quite fascinating. The idea of this teenage quest to buy a porn magazine, which is something that you don't see that often in animation.
Yeah, I feel like parents would have shut off the video if it's even had a hint of that. But
Even though the idea was to portray it more as an impossible love story, there's nothing at all pornographic in it,
oh
of
no,
course. But
no. But again, here in the U.S., things are we're a little more sensitive and
yeah,
about
this is
things.
why
I
I
think
was
it's
surprised that it was honestly was surprised that it was picked by the festival. Was generally surprised because I thought these days probably something like this would not work or fly, but I was happily surprised that it still worked because I still think the idea was to make something sweet and tender and nothing pornographic at all.
Yeah. I will say it out on film. We always try to push the boundaries, so don't worry about that with us. We're a
Okay.
little bit subversive over here. Um, I think with all of your stories, there was both a coming of age, a self discovery, but also some of them had like additional messages. So, like May, yours dealt with conforming, but also did it with like just gender roles. This is how I'm supposed to act as a woman, or this is how I'm supposed to act like a man. I'm supposed to copy everybody else. Baz, yours was very like personal as well because I felt like there was a bit of racial profiling, to say the least, in part of it. Was there, for each one of you, was there something else that came into the mix when having to tell, like, it wasn't just the queer side, but there was something else, another social issue that you were coming up with? I think, Baz, you said that you worked with another creative on this project. May, I know there's something personal about it, but if you guys want to talk a little bit about additional messages you were trying to get across in these stories.
May, shall I go or do you want to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very British thing right now. After you. Uh, yeah, I'll go. So our film was co-written with Dean Atter, who is the author of the poem, and also our producer Ben Jackson. Um, as I referred to earlier, me and Ben were actually already looking to make a film centered around kind of I think his uncomfortable kind of feelings holding hands in public with his boyfriend. So that features in our film. But obviously, also, as you say, there is the kind of it's difficult to talk about this stuff because it gets a little bit, yeah, heavy in terms of the subject matter. But for sure, from the racial profiling point of view, that is very much in there. In fact, that scene was based on my own research. I was kind of looking at accounts and reading accounts of young black men, British men that had been kind of stopped and searched and kind of how it had made them feel. And a common theme that came up throughout was that kind of isolation, which is why in the film we kind of go into a different space and we really explore that. But also from that point of view, I really wanted to put a different, we wanted to put a different spin on it in terms of how it makes the audience feel. Because I think often in those situations, I certainly know that some people would go walk past, say, a young person being stopped and searched, and there's a certain kind of suspicion that would be around that person immediately, whether or not they've done anything wrong. We wanted to make it really clear in ours that, our boys were miles away from the market stall in which they're being accused of stealing from, but, they're still being accused nonetheless. So there's definitely those themes in there. There was a lot we wanted to say. We started making this during the kind of height of I guess broadcast attention on the Black Lives Matter movement. So there was an incredible amount of stuff we wanted to say. There were characters that were made for the film that we wanted to have more of a story, but we had to make it very focused. But I think a big thing that runs throughout it is just a feeling of being othered. I mean, speaking to Ben and Dean during our kind of I guess research discussions or creative discussions, a lot of what came up, which was, well, I guess in some ways very heartbreaking, hearing their stories of where they've felt kind of othered or kind of any kind of prejudice kind of against them. But then I guess there's also that they both express times where they've been helped by people. In fact, I mean, in our film, say the police are not, they don't get the best kind of rep, I guess. But equally, in our research stage, Dean was speaking about times in which he'd been, really helped by the police during, certain personal moments. So yeah, there was a lot that we wanted to say. Obviously, our film it crosses over at the intersection of kind of queerness and kind of a black story as well. And yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of Ben and Dean in there, but from my perspective, I'm from a working class background as well. So for me, I have also feelings of moments in my life where I've not felt accepted or I've felt like I was on the outside of something. So I feel like the tenderness that comes across within our film and also the Defiance is a bit of a mix of kind of all of our experiences together.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I felt that. And I do, that's something I love about just storytelling in general. It's supposed to be conversation starters. And hopefully, after somebody watches it, they'll do their own research as well.
Mhm.
May, Yours Again was a film that inspired this. Tell us a little bit about it.
There was so much research that went into this film. I feel like the stuff that actually was shown was just kind of like the very tip of what I could actually get in there. But the main sort of themes was this idea of like the stories that we tell ourselves and how we kind of create the realities that we exist in to a certain extent through the story, like how powerful storytelling is. And that's one of the things of convention is that if you only ever see stories that say that a certain thing is acceptable, then that's what will be the norm, if you know what I mean. So it was about breaking out of that. And I think one of the big stories that gets used as an against queerness is this thing of like it not being natural. So I wanted to incorporate a lot of like queer ecology, which is an amazing, oh my God, I love queer ecology. There's so much in it, like looking to nature with a queer eye and just seeing all of the like myriad amazing ways that nature does everything, which is what the slugs are about, because slugs are hermaphroditic, so sort of like transform the notion of gender, and which is why I wanted to incorporate it within the sort of like otherwise very kind of symbolically um sort of like vaginal shapes to be like, it's whatever, it's everything. It's like life is everything and everything in between. And I was also, yeah, looking a lot about gender convention and yeah, again, just back to this sort of like the ruling stories that if you don't challenge can sort of really create your realities, basically.
Yeah, there's another filmmaker. I wish they could have joined us for this. There's the filmmaker of How a River is Born, which deals also with like yonic symbolism, nature. If you get a chance, check it out.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Marcelo, AJ, anything you want to add about your stories?
Yeah, so part of what we were exploring during our film was the first act is kind of like letting go of the desire for male validation, which I feel like is a very important step in like becoming a lesbian and accepting your lesbian identity. So yeah, we were just exploring that a lot in the film, and even like the name "A Bird Hit My Window" and "Now I'm a Lesbian." When we first came up with that title, we both kind of had like this reaction to like that word and like the negative connotations in society, it being over sexualized, and we had to kind of like explore why we felt that way. And then like in exploring that, we kind of like accepted that word more, and then like we're able to put that in the film also.
Incredible. And Marcelo, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think in the end, my short film is very much about shame, about feeling shameful, and up to a point in which it might almost trigger some paranoia, and so how that sense of shame, what would be the biggest fear without revealing how it ends, but what would be the biggest fear to be exposed in something that where you feel the most vulnerable, and so that's what triggered the whole story, this idea of being exposed in something that you feel for which you feel very much ashamed.
Yeah, I think anybody, regardless of sexual orientation, identity, can understand the feelings of shame. So, and I think again, another thing is just realizing that there's a sense of normalcy when we tell these stories. It normalizes things that some people might see foreign or alien. Um, so we only have like seconds left. If oh nope, looks like we are at time. So all I want to say is it is so great for all of you to join us. It's I think that oh sorry, one alert just popped up on my screen. It was great for all of you to join us. Will any of you be joining us at the in-person screening here in Atlanta?
I wish. Gladly
Uh,
not.
I wish I was. Dean, though, our poet and co-writer and exec producer will be there. So yeah.
okay. Well, I'm going to tell everybody, please check out the filmmakers, check out their films, and learn a little bit more and the next step on their journey. But everybody, thank you so much for joining this. It was an incredible interview, and I can't wait to see what your next projects are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.